Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. It truly is something that affects us all, but we really don't realize it. A lot of times we don't even think of it because it's been done for us. I'm talking about the planning that goes into our towns, villages, cities that we live in. Urban planning, specifically. We're going to learn more about that today. And from his viewpoint, with a lot of years as an urban and regional planner at the University of Pittsburgh, he's back with us as our Man of the Year. Richard Golden Bickel Jr. is on the program. Hey, sir, how are you doing today?
Very good, thank you.
Wonderful having you back here. I'd love to talk about, now, we've looked at different things that have been done broadly, but I'd love to look at, through your vantage point, what you feel may not have been done right, or things that have been done right over the years, and it doesn't matter what area, when it comes to urban planning. Anything stand out for you?
Well, a big issue is traffic congestion, and roads were often designed for slower speeds and slower cars and trucks. And now we're dealing with high-speed expressways, and sometimes those expressways are not aligned with the local road network very well. And so that's an example of something that if we were starting from scratch, we'd do a better job with that.
You know, that's one of those things that I don't believe any of us even give thought to. You know, we look at it, through, the untrained eye as a road is a road, an expressway is an expressway. In my view, any time that they took a freeway through a city neighborhood, it did major damage to that area. And this, where am I talking about? San Francisco. I was out there in the spring, and I was talking with somebody about that, and it just wasn't a good idea. Just the way the infrastructure works, and it seems like a good idea, maybe a cut through in a neighborhood, but usually never works. I think in New York City they've done that a few times as well.
Right, and Robert Moses, who was the head of planning for the Metropolitan Transportation Association, he had very strong views about building expressways, including wanting to put a couple down in southern Manhattan through Washington Square Park and things like that. And the consequences for neighborhoods are disastrous. And he had such a long-lasting career that it was a long time before some of his approaches were starting to be changed.
If you could pick a city anywhere in the world that you feel that they got it right overall in terms of the way things were planned, the infrastructure, what city would it be?
Well, I think the one issue is what I would call legacy transit systems and legacy cities. In other words, older places that have had to retrofit what they have now. And that's an impediment because it costs a lot of money. The other is so-called newer cities that are located in the west of the U.S. that have had the luxury of learning from mistakes made in other places, and hopefully they've designed their road systems and now transit systems, which they didn't have at all in the past, to better serve the population and employment demands in their region.
Because you've been doing this so long, Richard, when you go to a different area, are you always looking at these things? Like it's like almost like you can't get away from it in your mind?
Well, usually I went to a lot of these places because I was going to the American Planning Association annual conference, and the whole conference was devoted to planning issues as well as presentations by people from the local area and an orientation tour and things like that. I always found those tours were fascinating because you had somebody on the bus who was telling you how this particular project was built.
Mm-hmm.
And when the conference was held in Philadelphia, I was one of the organizers of the orientation tour in Philadelphia, and that was an experience because you learn to look for issues that otherwise you might just take for granted or just drive right by or take the transit right by.
Out of sight, out of mind, I would assume, because you're buzzing past it. You're not thinking, you're not seeing it. InstantFeedbackSteve@gmail.com, one way to reach us, or you can find us as well at 631-438-1576. I think we have a call. Hi, can you hear us? Oh, I thought we did. All right, we'll check that in just a few minutes. Urban-wise, compared to city-wise, what is the radical differences that stand out or the mistakes that you think are made?
Well, urban implies a higher density, and rural implies very low density. In between are the suburbs. That's where some of the major mistakes occurred, and also where some of the successes today are occurring because the local people and their elected officials are focusing on the problems of the past in other areas or in their own, and they're now designing better systems.
We had a question about courses to take. If a student was looking to get into urban planning or some form of it, what are some of the things that are, in your opinion, essential?
Well, one would be a course on economics, which unfortunately I didn't take in college. And or graduate school, I had courses that talked about economics. And so when I started working, I bought a copy of Samuelson's book called Economics and sort of read through it and taught myself some economic issues. It would be better if you could do that while you're in school. Mm. And the other, everybody is focused on the environment. I would think initially you would want some kind of survey course that talks about a variety of environmental issues, not just one small area. And then you could work from that survey course, you could decide whether you want to take a more particular focus on something.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Your personal view of it in terms of the economy. And what I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Well, then also urban geography, not just geography, but urban geography, something that focuses on the relationship of economic issues and planning to actual places. That's what got me interested in planning. I had been focused on pre-medicine and didn't do well in chemistry, so I switched to urban planning after taking an urban geography course, and that was eye-opening. I found something I really liked, and I just sort of fell into it, and then stayed at Pitt to take the first course in the planning school, and stayed there to get my master's degree.
Going to jump to a call. I believe we have them now. Can you hear us? So odd. Why we're not hearing them. Interesting.
Yeah, I heard something in the background.
Yeah, me too. And I don't know why we're not hearing them.
Man, that's bad.
Yeah. Sometimes technology doesn't do exactly what you want it to do. Let me see. I'm going to make one quick change here and see if that actually makes a difference. I know what you're talking about when it comes to the classes you should have taken. Psychology. I don't know why I didn't take it, because it would have been so beneficial now in everything that I do. But I honestly, I think I do know why, because I thought I knew it all when I was like 18, like many students.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I think we have him back here. Can you hear us? I don't know why they can't hear us.
Hello?
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can actually.
Beautiful.
Um,
All right, we're checking in with Searsport, Maine this morning. And what's your question for Richard?
Well, I'm a student from South Florida, and I tune into a lot of his shows, which is very inspiring, and love his forward thinking. So I wanted to know what courses would I take to follow in his footsteps.
Well, a little earlier we talked about an economics course, and an urban geography course, and an environmental course that is more like a survey of different environmental issues rather than one issue. Because when you say the environment, that's a huge area. And urban geography is very important for planners because it ties in the political and the demographics of an area, and focuses on possible solutions.
Right. Interesting when we talk about the environment. Thus far, we haven't really dug deeper into the environmental impact of urban planning. I would think that would be, especially if you're studying urban planning, or even if you're in that profession, I would think that would be huge, right?
Right. Yeah. The other issue that I didn't know about when I was in planning school was the impact of developing expressways and other projects on local neighborhoods. I learned that in school, and I learned it when I started working. A course at the New York Historical Society, not a course, there's an exhibit at the New York Historical Society on the life of Robert Moses, and it's focusing on the book prepared by Caro, who was the author of that. It's all about his life and all of the things he did. I would recommend that. I'm not exactly sure where the New York Historical Society is, but it's in Manhattan, and it's an exhibit that's going to be there probably through the end of October.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Interesting.
All right.
Robert Caro, that's who I'm thinking of.
Got it. All right. Appreciate you calling. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great day.
I appreciate the info. Bye.
Sure. I'm getting this thought as we talk about urban planning and what you've done, and anybody that's involved in this, what a major responsibility. Do you feel that, when you're in the throe of making those decisions, and of course, there's a lot around you that influences the decisions, including politics. Do you feel that it's it's a huge responsibility that impacts so many people?
Yes, I think one thing you learn in planning is that you can't be a lone wolf. You have to work within a political and local framework. And usually, at least when I was working at the Montgomery County Planning Commission in Pennsylvania, you're working for a county government, but the planning department had different sections. And my section was involved in local government work, zoning ordinances, comprehensive plans, subdivision regulations. And you would go to night meetings with the planning commissions or the elected officials and get their viewpoint on what we were working on. That was very helpful. And of course, you're trying to convince them that some of the newer ideas are what they should consider. And sometimes that's difficult because they're very happy with the governmental setting and the arrangements that they have.
What do you want people to know when it comes to what you've done over the years, teaching, planning, all of that? Again, the rest of us, I'm going to say it, we take it for granted. We just get in our car, we drive. We go through a neighborhood, we just expect it to be there and don't even give it any thought. What would you want people to know? Well,
I think you should focus on the local media that is doing a much better job now in reporting planning issues, directly or indirectly, and you can learn a lot about how to approach a new project and whether it really is bad or is it good, and producing a sort of a NIMBY reaction from local residents, not in my backyard. And that gives you a perspective on what is happening.
I want to focus for just a moment on different traffic flow. So New Jersey, there's always been said that, I'm trying to remember here, you can't easily make a left. Everything goes right. It's kind of been a running joke for a number of years. Thoughts on that traffic flow? What's your initial thought of it all?
What I was involved in for a while was at the county level, but then I went to work for the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, which covers 9 counties in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, including Philadelphia. And there you begin to realize that traffic and transit are key regional issues. And that's what makes a region work, is how well its transportation system is operating. And Philadelphia, being along the Delaware River and next to New Jersey, those were interstate and regional issues that had to be addressed.
When you drive through New York City, because I know we were just talking about that off air, that you are going to be driving through New York City in the next 30 days. What's your initial thought? Personally, I'm going to share, and I'm almost afraid to admit this. I don't drive through the city. I just do not like doing it. I try to take mass transit. I don't want to deal with it. What's your initial thought of the way things are set up and the way things flow?
Well, when I go to New York, like I'm leaving tomorrow for 3 or 4 days, I take Amtrak and leave my car at home.
Yep.
But when I take this trip to Newport, Nantucket, and Sag Harbor in the fall, I drive. And I always dread the drive from Philadelphia to Greenport or Orient Point at the end of Long Island to catch the ferry over to New London.
Sure.
That's a long trip. And then on the way back, when I leave from Sag Harbor, I've got the long drive back to Pennsylvania, going through Staten Island from the Verrazano Bridge. And invariably, there's a lot of congestion. And no matter what time you leave,
yep.
And it's a long drive. It's very nerve-wracking when the traffic levels are high.
It's a really good point there, because driving is driving, but when it gets amped up in terms of the stress going through a city like New York, and there's no way around it, every road is pretty much just as congested. And if that took you 2 hours to get through, if you did 2 hours on some rural road or just an interstate somewhere, it's relaxing. you get into a zone and you just enjoy it. I'll tell you, coincidentally, you're passing through where I am, a suburb of New York, Long Island, and anytime that anybody says that they're going to Connecticut, I always say, "Oh, you're taking the ferry?" And when they say, "No, I'm going to drive through New York City and go that way," I look at them and say, "Why?" Well, I know there's expense, but there's gas included in driving. I'd add a few bucks and take the ferry. It's just so much easier, and you take your car on the ferry at the same time.
Right.
That was well thought out in terms of transportation between an island and a mainland, and they've often talked about a bridge between Long Island and Connecticut. Decade. I remember being a kid and they were talking about it. Never materialized, and I never knew why they didn't. It's for anybody that doesn't know, it's a span of about 20 miles. Why do you think that never took place?
Oh, I think the expense would have been enormous. I mean, I lived in Glen Cove when I was in high school, and I could look over and see this area called Connecticut, but I didn't go there that often because I was young. I didn't have a car, and my parents didn't go towards Connecticut. But it's the cost of infrastructure projects is so big, and the time it takes to build them is so long that you've got to allocate a huge amount of money to accomplish something. Now, recently, with the Federal Investment Act, there's more money for infrastructure, and the long-delayed parallel tunnel, rail tunnel, to get into Manhattan is going to be built. It may take a couple of years, but it's now scheduled. It was scheduled in the beginning of the Christie administration in New Jersey, and then it was dropped. Now it's on the transportation program, and that will be tremendous relief, because when Amtrak and New Jersey Transit are running through those tunnels, and now there's only one tunnel, there's a tremendous potential for delays and disruption. And if you have a parallel tunnel, that would alleviate that bottleneck.
When we talk about those the big span of bridges, like Long Island to Connecticut, about 20 miles or so, where are there bridges like that in the United States that could be about 20 miles long? Are there any? I'm trying to think.
There are some in the San Francisco area that are pretty long, below the famous one, but I can't think of one that's 20 miles. That would be a long stretch.
Yeah, and to your point, the expense and the time to build it. Yeah, I was just thinking, well, where is there one? I'm trying to, Maryland. I know that that bridge was pretty long. The one that the tanker,
the Bay Bridge. Yeah,
yeah, but I don't know the exact length of it.
The Bay Bridge is a pretty long bridge, but the one where the tanker hit, I believe, is the Key Bridge or something like that. It's closer to Baltimore.
Gotcha. Fascinating talking about all this stuff. It really is. It gives us perspective, a new appreciation for where we live, honestly. And, in some regards, maybe frustration. why certain things were done. You scratch your head and try and figure it out. But you make a lot of this, all of it clear. But when we talked about Long Island and Robert Moses and why he designed those windy roads to slow traffic down and low bridges to keep the commercial vehicles out. Never understood it. And honestly, I've shared that with a number of people since you told me that. So I look like I'm plugged in. Richard, always great talking with you. Love your energy and how you're still plugged into what you're doing even to the day. And thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those round trips that you plan in advance, which are perfect on your way there and perfect on your way back? Or those meetings with friends for which you make a group chat 3 months before so that nobody or anything is missing? Or your daughter's first birthday party. You planned it with such dedication that instead of the first, it felt like our 15s. The same way you plan each detail for those moments. Start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit. And make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.